Great to see you. Thank you so much for being here with me, YouTube and Facebook. I really appreciate it. My name is Otis Landerholm. I am the founding attorney here at Landerholm Immigration, A.P.C, where we fight for your American dream. I really appreciate you joining me today. Today we are talking about the topic of how to avoid secondary inspection at an airport. What is secondary inspection? How to avoid it? And we will get into some border issues and some airport issues. And sometimes, in an immigration case, the thing that triggers the phone call that somebody needs a lawyer is like, oh man, somebody was just horribly treated at an airport coming into the United States. And if that happens, sometimes there's something we can do about it, sometimes there's not, but let's at least get advice about it and let's see if there's a way for us to fix it. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here. This is another episode of the Empowered Immigrant Live. And the Empowered Immigrant Live, we are here to train, teach, inspire, and empower immigrants to make the most out of immigration law and to make the most out of their lives. All right? And so if you've just joined us, today our theme is how to avoid secondary inspection at the airport. Thank you to everyone who submitted your questions. I really appreciate that. We've got 30 minutes to discuss this topic in English, and then we'll do the same episode in Spanish. Si usted habla español, que venga a las 2:30. Vamos a hacerlo en español, okay? Well, we're starting a couple minutes late, so we might start at like 2:37-ish in Spanish, all right? So anyway, thank you, welcome. So jumping right into our topic here, what is secondary inspection? What is that? What does that even mean? All right, here's the deal. When you arrive on the airplane, all right, when you arrive at an airport, when you've got a visa, you've got a green card, you've got your permit so that you were allowed to board the plane to begin with, right? And now you've arrived to the U.S., you got to pass through customs. You got to pass through a border patrol official. And if that official, they've got a long line right there, there are delays in the airports, there have been for years. So if that official can't quickly, accurately, confidently determine that you should be, quote unquote, admitted to the U.S., they can ask you to go into secondary inspection, okay? And so the primary inspection is at the little kiosk thing, and you show up and you show your passport, you show your visa, they stamp your I-94, or they give you an electronic, they just do it electronic, and they welcome you into the U.S. Typically, they will stamp your passport, though, okay? And so, at least they should, you want to get your passport stamped. That's great evidence that you were admitted, so please get that. And then, that's primary inspection. It's pretty simple. It takes, you're there for like 1 minute, right? And there's next. But if they can't determine, maybe there's some issue, some red flag, some other questions that came up as they swiped your passport and the name came up through the database. If so, sometimes they'll send a person to secondary inspection. So just going into secondary inspection, sometimes it can be stressful. What do you mean? Now I've got to go to some other place. I'm not sure if I'm going to be admitted. What if I've got a connecting flight? Maybe I'll miss my connecting flight and be further delayed. That can be stressful. But here's the thing. Don't panic. All right? Yes, it can be stressful, but please don't panic. Keep your cool. Keep your calm. All right? Go into secondary inspection and understand what it's about. That's what this video is about. Okay? And so in secondary inspection, a different officer might do several different things. One, they might ask you a whole bunch of questions about your entry into the United States or about your visa application or about anything, all right? About your history immigrating to the U.S., all right? Or maybe if you've ever been arrested before or whatever. They might want to clarify some details. So an officer might ask you questions, very common. Second thing they might do is they might ask to see your luggage. They might ask to see your phone. They might ask to see your computer, all right? And they can do that. 3, they will look into their own computers, all right, and they'll look into your background information and in immigration's databases to see sometimes somebody's name is similar. Sometimes our names are exactly matching to someone that is in their database. And it's like, okay, they've got to send you to secondary inspection just to double check that you're not this person with that name who's doing bad stuff. Instead, you're this person with that name who's doing good stuff, right? And so that happens. And sometimes they'll take your biographic information, fingerprints, photograph, things like that, to confirm your identity, to confirm that you really are who you say you are, to confirm that you are admissible to enter the U.S. Okay, so that's basically what secondary inspection is. Now let's be clear about it. This sometimes can be a horrible experience. All right, there's a range. There's a range. We have one client who always gets put into secondary inspection. He has a criminal record from years in the past. He's taken care of it. All right, the law is clear that he's not quote unquote deportable, but they're always double checking. They always send him to secondary, so he's used to it. And every time he travels internationally, our office writes him a detailed letter. He shows it to the officer. He expects the delay, so he makes sure to get a connecting flight that has enough of a layover so that he can go through this process because he expects it, all right? And, he's often in there for 2 to 4 extra hours every time to allow him to check that record. Hey, here's my proof. He travels with a letter and with all of the evidence that immigration needs to confirm that he is who he says he is and his issues were all taken care of, and then they allow him to re-enter. And now the advice for him is we file for citizenship as soon as he's eligible, all right? And we're working towards that, and as soon as he is eligible, we'll file for citizenship. Once he's a citizen, that issue should go away. We have another client, though, who was held for, this was one time, and this was recently, was held for 8 hours, no food, all right, during all this time, asked questions by 3 different officials. They were convinced that she was lying, okay, but eventually they paroled her into the U.S. and gave her a date to show up to deferred inspection at Customs and Border Patrol headquarters, at which point she hired our office, and then we defended her there, and then they gave her visa back, all right? But it's like that whole experience, being held up in the airport for so long, several different rounds of questioning, it can be really, it can be a horrible experience. And so I don't want you to go through that. I don't want your loved ones to go through that. Obviously, we've had other clients with even worse situations where their loved one got their visa canceled. All right, there was a woman who was like crying on the phone with me the other day whose fiance has their visa canceled. They were sent back to Australia, right? And so, and we've had clients where, my son is visiting me from Belgium and they were just turned around. What do you say? What do you mean they can't enter the U.S.? Yeah, they were turned around and now they're on a flight back to Belgium. And after reviewing the records, it's like, I'm sorry, they weren't admissible, right? Immigration was following the law, and the law is bad. And, if somebody has a certain crime or if somebody has a crime involving moral turpitude or whatever, it's like, I'm sorry, you're never going to see your son on U.S. soil again. And because that's the way immigration law is, it's messed up, okay? It's messed up. But often where the rubber hits the road, where the law works against people, is inside of an airport. And that's what we're talking about today. Okay? And so you gotta know that. You gotta understand it. All right, so before we get into everybody's questions, let's discuss the basics. Yeah, we've talked about it a little bit, what's secondary inspection, things like that, but here's what you need to know. CBP, Customs and Border Patrol, they have the right to check everything, all right? National security issues in the airports, I mean, they can do a lot of things in the airport. Like they can strip search people especially if there's suspicion of drugs. They don't typically do that unless there's like suspicion of something like transportation of drugs, and then they will. But they have a lot of power. They certainly have the power to check your phone, your social media, your email. Like, don't have anything stupid with you. Don't have anything stupid on your social media. Don't have pictures of you wearing t-shirts with marijuana flags and stuff. All right, they'll ask you all kinds of questions about it. They'll cancel your visa and send you back to the country you came from. So it's like you got to be aware that Customs and Border Patrol has a lot of power to do all kinds of things. Okay? The second thing you got to be aware of is Customs and Border Patrol, they could ask you lots of different questions. You know, why are you visiting the U.S.? Where are you staying? With whom will you be staying? How long will you stay there? How much money do you have with you right now? Have you visited the U.S. before? Do you have enough money to support you on your trip? How much is your trip going to cost? All right? How long have you visited the U.S. before, and how frequently do you come? Why did you visit in the past? What did you do then? Okay? You did a trip around the country. Well, were you renting a car or did you buy a car? After you finished with your car, did you sell the car? Did you make a profit from that sale? Are you going to do the same thing? Are you actually here buying and selling things? Right? Sometimes they turn the language that people use around and interpret what we've done in a way that it violates our visa. So anyway, you got to be mindful of that. And be prepared for a luggage search, including a laptop. Hey, give me your laptop and tell me the passwords to use it. They might say that. All right? Give me your phone. Okay, sign in to your phone so that I can search your text history. All right? Oh, I see you were texting your boyfriend. All right? Who's this person? Is this a U.S. citizen boyfriend? Boom, I'm going to call him right now. Hey, you know this person? What's your plan in the U.S.? They can do these things. All right? And right now in COVID times, be prepared for a medical screening. They'll have a COVID-19 health form. You got to be aware. All right? They can do these things. They do these things. So that's all I wanted to say. Let's answer your questions. All right? Our first question, and if you have a question, you're watching me right now, thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for joining me. So ask me your questions. Send me your text messages. I'll do my very best. I'm going to start with the questions that have previously been submitted, so let's answer those first. Again, if you're joining me, I'm Otis Landerholm. Landerholm Immigration, A.P.C. is my law firm where we fight for your American dream. So let's get into the questions, and if you've got a question, hey, send it to me. Text it to me. Send me a comment here below our chat. Let's get to it. Our first question today comes from Fred. Fred, thank you for asking your question. Fred, you ask, I have a valid green card, but I get stopped by border officials all the time and every time. Can I sue them? I am tired of it. I got it. Fred, thank you. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for your question. Thank you for being here with me right now. So here's the deal. Yes, you're right. This can be very frustrating. And I want you to know sometimes this will happen where you're stopped every single time. Maybe, right? Maybe your name is being confused with some other person who might have your exact same name. It says here your name is Fred. That's a common name, right? And so maybe you have I don't know what your last name is, but maybe immigration has your name confused with some other person, and maybe that person is on like a no-fly list or a watch list, right? And so maybe they want to confirm your identity. Maybe there's like a red flag that comes when they swipe your passport and you enter the country. So that might cause it. The other thing is sometimes it happens when you have a criminal record from the past. All right? So whatever the reason, in my opinion, your question is, can I sue them? All right, here's the deal. Could it be possible to sue Customs and Border Patrol? Maybe, all right? But here's the thing. Don't sue CBP. It very likely won't work, all right? They have government immunity. It's very, very difficult. If you can prove that they are singling you out because of like a protected ground, they're singling you out because of your religion or your national origin or your sexual orientation or something like that, then maybe, all right? But the vast majority, I'll say 99% of these cases, don't sue CBP. It's not going to work. Instead, what I recommend in these situations is before just like filing a lawsuit that's not going to work anyway, before doing that, there's a couple things you can try. One is there's a thing called DHS TRIP, okay? DHS TRIP, what is that? TRIP stands for the Traveler Redress Inquiry Program. Or if you did a Google search for DHS TRIP, it'll come up. There's a way to like say, hey, look, I'm constantly getting stopped. Please fix it. All right? And they can like look into it and see. Sometimes it doesn't do anything. Sometimes it'll actually work. And so one, I recommend checking that out. A lawyer can help you do that. The second thing to try is to try doing a FOIA. A FOIA, Freedom of Information Act request, that's a way to get access to your immigration file. You can get access to your file and you can see, is there something weird in your immigration file? Is there something that shouldn't be there? Do they think you have an arrest when really they're just confusing your identity with somebody else? So sometimes we can run a FOIA. And the third thing to think about, you mentioned that you're a green card holder. The third thing to think about is become a citizen. All right? If you have a valid green card and if you're in the U.S. for 5 years, then you can apply to become a U.S. citizen, talk that over with a lawyer, but sometimes that issue will go away when you become a citizen. Okay? And then, if that is still talking, one thing that our office does also is we write a travel letter for our clients, especially if they have trouble at the airports, just to say, hey, look, this person's got an attorney. This person, here's the situation. We're not trying to hide anything. Here's the situation. Please let me be admitted back into the U.S. Okay, so that's an option too. Fred, I'd love to help you. If that makes sense for you, please contact our office. You can see our number here on the screen, all right? Call us for a consultation. We'd love to do that. Okay, next question. Next question comes from Anne. Anne, thank you for your question. You say, my husband's tourist visa was canceled at the airport and he was sent back to his home country in Peru. What can we do? Gosh. Anne, thank you for your question. I am sorry to hear about that. I am sorry to hear that. That is a frustrating situation and you are not alone. That happens. Several people have contacted my office when their spouse, their parent, someone they care about has been denied entry on a tourist visa. And so my first question for you is, did they tell you why? Did they tell your husband why they canceled his visa? Because sometimes when a person is married to a U.S. citizen, or even if they're like in a relationship with a boyfriend, girlfriend with a U.S. citizen, sometimes Border Patrol will say, hey, look, you're not really a tourist. All right? They'll say, hey, if they think that you're not really a tourist because you're not coming for a temporary stay, but you're coming with the intention of moving to the U.S., of marrying, of staying with a spouse or a significant other, sometimes they will cancel a visa. And yeah, it's really frustrating when that happens, but sometimes they do that. And so if that is what happened, then sometimes the thing to do is to file an I-130 and to get your spouse a green card through the U.S. consulate in Lima, Peru, and to have them come in not with a visa, but with a green card, not with a non-immigrant temporary visitor visa, and instead with a permanent residence, which is a green card or a quote-unquote immigrant visa, ready to immigrate and move to the U.S. And sometimes Border Patrol will just say, hey, look, that's the proper way to do it. You need to do it that way, so do it that way. And yes, that's frustrating, and sometimes it causes a huge disruption to a person's life, right? You got to spend some time apart as you're going through the process. But sometimes that's the only way to fix it. And it just takes time going through the process to fix it. So, Anne, thank you for your question. If my office can help you, please contact us. It sounds like you could file an I-130 for your spouse. We'd love to help you through that if that makes sense for you. The next question comes from Mostafa. Mostafa, thank you for your question. I really appreciate it. Your question is, I had a fraudulent marriage, or I had a fraud marriage. I think that's, fraudulent marriage. I pled guilty in 2007. I got deported in 2020. Now, what do I have to do to come back to the U.S.? I have a daughter now who's 14 years old. My gosh. Mustafa, thank you for your question. My first thought is, let's run FOIAs for you. Let's figure out exactly, was there a finding of marriage fraud, or are you just telling me right now, was it really a fraudulent marriage? You mentioned you pled guilty. What's code section? What specific law did you plead guilty to back in 2007? You mentioned that you were deported. Are you sure it's a deportation order? Might it possibly have been a voluntary departure? Is there some other thing? Like, first step, let's run FOIAs on your case, okay? And, it might be the case if you do have a fraud finding, like a marriage fraud finding. If that's without doubt, you have a marriage fraud finding, then, that causes inadmissibility. It causes a permanent bar. It's not waivable, okay? Unless you had a U visa. We could talk about a U visa can waive marriage fraud. But otherwise, I would say let's do a consultation. Let's run FOIAs. Let's get to the bottom of what exactly happened in your case so that we can give you good advice as to whether or not there might be a strategy to bringing you back to the U.S. Okay? Mustafa, thank you so much. I hope that answered your question. The next question comes from Fabi. Fabi, thank you for your question. Your question says, why does your office charge $2,000, $2K, for obtaining FOIA documents when they can be obtained for $20? Okay, Fabi, wow, thank you for your question. It sounds like you've consulted with my team, and it sounds like the FOIAs that we are requesting for you, we have quoted a price tag of $2,000 on them. Is that correct? So if that's true, well, hey, thank you. Thank you for coming through the consultation process. Thank you for asking that question, all right? So here's the thing, different offices charge different amounts for FOIAs. Not all FOIAs are equal. Typically, getting the FOIA is the easy part. So Fabi, don't just get the FOIA. What the cost of really doing this correctly is, all right, what it really is you're paying for an attorney who knows what they're doing to review the FOIAs. Who cares about just getting a bunch of records, right? It's like, let's review them carefully, page by page. Let's assess, let's strategize what options might be available to you within the records that we're requesting. And in our office, when we run FOIAs, we're not just running one FOIA. We typically run 6 of them, okay? FBI, DOJ, OBIM, which is the Office of Biometrics and Identity Management, USCIS, Immigration Court, Border Patrol, ICE. We're asking for as many records as we can possibly get so that we see the full issue. We see everything that's going on, all right? And so anyway, that's the way our office does it. If you're working with a different attorney, I hope that they do it that way too. Because in my experience, people will hire a different office or a different firm to do FOIAs, and they don't get the whole picture. And then they come and hire our office, and then we got to go start over again and do it the right way so that we really see everything that's in a person's record. Anyway, and as far as the cost is concerned, hey, in my experience, and many of our clients feel the same way, it's well worth it. In fact, getting the FOIA, right? Getting a FOIA and getting a FOIA done correctly, it can often save thousands of dollars of like a problem being filed in a case, or if something being done improperly or not correcting some issue that was done incorrectly in the past. Anyway, Fabi, still, I thank you very much for your question. I appreciate it. And if we can help you with it, hey, we'd love to help you. All right? The next question is Marwan. Marwan, thank you for your question. Your question is, can my pregnant girlfriend file for prosecutorial discretion for me? And if yes, how does she file it and what does she need to do? All right, Marwan, Man. Let me just jump right into it. First of all, thank you for your question. Please don't have your pregnant girlfriend file for prosecutorial discretion for you. All right? Don't do that. Don't do that. Hire a lawyer to do this for you. Okay? Oh, my goodness. Okay, so, call our office to have a consultation. We'd love to help you through it. All right? I'm not calling you out, right? I just you want it done right. And you don't want to stress out your pregnant girlfriend with more things than what she needs to be worrying about. Let her focus on the baby that's growing in her belly, and let a lawyer who knows what they're doing handle a request that you can stay in the United States through prosecutorial discretion, all right? Especially if you are in immigration court. So please do that, all right? Don't have your pregnant girlfriend file prosecutorial discretion for you. Please hire a lawyer, and please do it right, all right? Unless your pregnant girlfriend happens to be a rock star immigration attorney, then I might say something different. But even then, it's like, hey, don't. Anyway, respect the pregnancy, man. Respect the pregnancy. That's my advice. My next question comes from Jiban. I think this is the last question that I'm going to be able to address today, okay? Just in the interest of time. Jiban, thank you for your question. I really appreciate it. Your question is, I am a B1, B2 visa holder. I cannot get back to India because of the pandemic, and I want to stay here. All right, I need work authorization. I want to pay the taxes to the government. I want to work here. All right, Jiban, thank you for that. Thank you for reaching out. It's not easy. All right, you want to stay here. You entered with a visa. It's not easy to just be able to stay here and to get a work permit. Some things to think about is, one, are you in a relationship with a U.S. citizen? If so, there could be, a marriage-based case in the future, something like that. Number two, have you ever been persecuted in India, threatened with death, suffered serious violence or threats? Hey, you might be eligible for an asylum-type argument or case. Talk to a lawyer about that. Number three, have you ever been harmed, beaten, attacked, whatever, here in the U.S.? Any of those things, that's a potential U visa, by the way. Any of those things have happened, please give our office a call. We'd love to do a consult with you. All right? And then there are things that, don't call my office, but there are some immigration offices that do, employment-based immigration options. So if you had a graduate degree, or if a U.S. employer is interested in sponsoring an employment-based visa for you, that might be an option. If you want to study in the U.S., change your B1, B2 visa for a student visa, an F1 student visa. You might be eligible to do that. Those are things that my office does not do, all right? And there are other immigration firms. We'd be happy to refer you to those if that's something. Feel free to give our office a call. We'd love to point you in the right direction if you have one of those options as well, all right? So, okay, that's it, everybody. Thank you all so much. Thank you all so much for being here. Good luck. Going into the border, that was our topic. Going into the border, please be mindful. Please be aware. Don't fly. Don't enter a plane with, anything in your computer, anything on your phone that would contradict the purpose of your visa, all right? Just be aware that Border Patrol, if they have any issues, please cooperate with them, and please just go through the process. If you have trouble with them, please contact our office. We are here to help, okay? That's all that we have time for today. If I haven't answered your question, I would still love to answer your question. Please continue to send it to us. You can do that through comment or whatever. You can also contact our office, especially if you need immigration help, or if you have an immigration case. Please give our office a call. We are here to help. If this video was useful, please subscribe to our channel here on YouTube. Click the notifications bell. We'll get you additional legal updates and news. All right? In the meantime, thank you all so much. We'll see you on the next episode of the Empowered Immigrant Live. I'm your host, Otis Landerholm, Landerholm Immigration, A.P.C, where we fight for your American dream. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.